Uduasha city, where the sun is a mirror and the moon a shadow. 800 years ago, the gates of death were broken by the Emperor Immortal. The 5 key-bearers, however, had already unlocked them and walked right through. It is in Uduasha city they dwell. Now, the ghost field breathes next to our reality, lit by the eternal flame of the well of Udu. It is a second skin, a place where thought and will struggle against gravity and light. In other places, the dead congregate in the ghost field, but in Uduasha, the well city, the hell city, they fall straight into the flames. See its glittering districts: Kshitijpur, where the rich plot to buy the horizon; Bunda West, where the refugees of 2 different nations flock; and Pasarhandu, the vertical maze of market and murder. And here is Udepat, where the ceaseless temple resides. Its inhabitants, a family, a snake, and a god. The temple has stood since before the gods of this world were forgotten. Watch as it turns the wheels of revolution. Welcome to Desperate Attune, an actual play podcast about people who take risks so they can survive against the odds.
Hi, this is Soumithri. You might notice that in this episode, the audio quality, specifically my audio quality, is noticeably worse. This is because I recorded this episode while on the beach, also on the day of the World Cup final happening in the background. So sometimes you might hear the ocean and sometimes you might hear people yelling as France and Argentina succeed and or fail to play football correctly.
Hi everyone, it's Soap with a recap of the last episode. So last time we saw Freya, the self-proclaimed Queen of Scotland, arrive at the Ceaseless Temple to collect Maud and Johannes, the Scotlander royals who'd sought refuge there. In tow were the revolutionary Marion and Hardil, a suspiciously well put together lawyer. Upon meeting Maud and Johannes, Freya had an immediate, soothing, almost hypnotic connection with them. To his surprise, Miros felt it too, and he did not like it. With Joan's help, he tried to attune to Freya to figure out what was going on with her. However, the attempt failed and came back to hit him in a wave of shame and guilt. As Miraz was about to take massive psych damage, Vickers interrupted proceedings with breakfast. She'd cooked up mashed potatoes with mashed potatoes and binding oil. The dish was ludicrous enough to snap Miraz out of his spiraling, and he was left with just a hint of the power residing within Freya. As they sat for breakfast, Freya introduced Hardil to the crew as the best lawyer in all of Uduasha, perhaps even in all of Iruvia, which deepened Miraz's suspicions, for how could a band of refugees afford him? At the dinner table, Miraz engaged Hardil, but Hardil was able to evade most of Miraz's questions, only revealing that he helped Freya in her work with the refugees, and that he'd been interested in the temple for some time. As the conversation progressed, Miraz recounted the difficulties the temple had gone through, and suggested that Hardil offer his pro bono services to them as well. Meanwhile, Vickers had marshaled the entire neighborhood to prepare a feast to replace her inedible potatoes, and spent a colossal amount of money in the process. Her curious behavior, and a few other slips, clued Hardil into her true identity. Unbeknownst to the crew, Hardil was a mob lawyer, under the employ of Munna, a criminal mastermind. Munna was at loggerheads with the Hive, the criminal organization that Vickers' sister, Elizabeth, was connected to. And so, having learned who Vickers really was, Hardil agreed to lend his services to the crew, for an unspecified favor in the future. At the other end of the dinner table, when Joan reminisced about her previous life in Scotland, Freya declared her intention to overthrow the Empire and make their homeland independent once more. She asked Joan, Johannes, and Maud to join her cause, but none were convinced. Joan's misgivings irked Marion, who accused her of betrayal. Joan, unmoved, challenged them to give her a real reason for how the revolution could succeed. It was then that Freya revealed that she was connected to a god, a power that even the immortal Emperor feared. Then Vickers, fed up with her guest's behavior, stepped into Joan's defense, demanding that they show some gratitude for the help the temple had extended. Freya conceded, with an apology and a promise to repay the favor. She left. Maud went with her, however Johannes, unwilling to give up his newfound love of hang gliding, stayed behind. And here we pick up the story, with the crew wondering what Freya really is and what power lurks within her.
Yeah, and I think, unless there is something else, I know both of you said there was something else that you wanted to do about Johannes. So I think now is a good time for that.
Yeah, Mira, start out. I'm going to not to do something about Johannes. I'm going to do something about Freya. So
Uh-huh.
Vickers can probably start.
Okay. So what she will do after having packed up all the food and like we're cleaning up, she will turn to Johannes and say, "Well, if you're going to stay around here, as I said, our doors will always be open, and hospitality is of course of the highest priority. But you may as well make yourself useful. Go see if Padmamukhi and Padmapriya don't have something to do for you, and I'm going to make him part of our
Excellent.
cohort." And that's
Amazing. Yeah, I think that seems like a long-term project. What do you want here? I think there's a couple of things. A, you can add another type to your cohort because they can hang glide places. You probably can become a devotee of the temple.
Absolutely yes, because hag gliding occultist sounds amazing to have.
Excellent. Okay.
To be honest.
I was going to say
the other
they
option?
could just also become like a devotee of the temple and be an expert in their own way. But I'm going to be real, hang gliding occultist just seems infinitely superior.
Okay, how long is this project? I want to argue for it being short, but
Yeah. I was going to say 6 class here because normally adding an upgrade is like 12 steps, but like Johannes is already part of you. And I don't think it should be more than like a couple of dice rolls.
Yep. I will just say that the rep that I just earned us, I'm immediately spending it on advancing this project because it seems to make sense.
Oh, and you rolled command. Are you you commanded him to go and take instruction.
I ordered him to go make himself useful. So now we have 2 ticks towards the hang gliding occultist Johannes project.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I should remind you and myself that Johannes is they them. It's just that like I was at graduation last week, and I have a very good friend called Johannes, and so whenever now I say Johannes, I remember my friend Johannes. Who is he? But yeah, I just want to flag.
Yes, hang gliding occultist.
Yes.
So Prince and I were talking about this in the break, but I think we could have an out of character conversation about what we want to be like pushing towards. Like, of course, we will still have the rest of downtime, and we probably won't start any sort of score today without Aadiyat. But yeah, I think we would really benefit from having some sort of like central thing, you know. There's a few like directions that I could suggest, but these are largely from Mira's perspective, so I'd like to hear your ideas, but it would be nice to be able to focus on a thing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you tell me.
Yeah. So let's see. I think our connection now with what's his name? The mob lawyer. We just saw him.
Hardil.
Hardil, yeah. It's something that it's a good way of you to generate problems for us and poke us at, but it's also not something that necessarily leads us to proactively push towards, you know?
Yeah,
so
sure.
I think in terms of things that we could proactively work towards, I personally, like Mira's obviously thought there was clearly something going on with Freya. We could get involved in that. I was going to go talk to His Majesty and ask him about this. But like, do we want to kind of like get into some sort of cult versus cult situation that could also wrap in the Scotlander Revolution? Is that a direction we'd be interested in?
I think it would be cool. Yeah.
All right. Then I think if we're interested in that, then I think what Mira is probably going to do, now moving back into character, but he's going to get the 2 of you guys together. And I think he's going to voice his concerns about, so that Freya person, that was rather odd, wasn't it? There's clearly something off about her, like so self-assured, and also like growing up in such awful circumstances and so young, but she doesn't carry herself like that. And then she mentioned, I felt something, you know, there was some sort of almost hypnotic, charismatic power. And Cousin, I saw the thing you were doing with your eyes. I didn't know you could do that, but it felt like that sort of thing. And I didn't like it. Didn't like it one bit. And I don't like it in connection with what she was saying about transforming the world and taking back Scotland and so on. It seems like, well, I suppose we could wash our hands clean of the whole thing but not really even because maybe Maud's in danger. Now we have Bartholomew under our roof, and I think there's something here. I think there's something here, something divine, something treacherous and occult.
Oh dear, you don't suppose she's ghost possessed? I thought that wasn't supposed to happen in Udwasha.
She mentioned the gods being on their side. My question is which ones and why?
Yes, well, quite a lot of gods back in Doskvol at least are nothing but, well, ghosts with an inflated sense of self.
And then I think Miraz is kind of like opening his mouth and closing it because it's like you're literally in a temple of a forgotten god, well, a remembered god.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of opens and closes his mouth and is like, okay,
yeah,
and whatever.
We have a god, but that doesn't mean that most people do. And I think it just, Vickers probably would suspect ghosts before gods because that's how Doskvol works.
Would Joan have a professional opinion on this?
Yes. You've been speaking to Freya. What would you have thought?
Yeah, I wonder whether, like, when Vickers mentions, maybe it's a ghost, whether Joan could be like, oh wait, no, but the eyes would be dilated in this and that way or whatever.
Should we have some sort of like group action study or something?
Yeah, gather information maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Pool together our notes. Obviously, you can tell me a lot more about whatever's going on with the Scholar refugees and so on, because the cult, as we know, out of character and as players, is in that part of town, which is literally something Miraz doesn't give a shit about. So, but maybe you can pull together some knowledge on that and what you know, and I could help.
Yeah, sounds good.
Is it a group action or is it me assisting you, do you think?
I feel like a group action is probably appropriate.
Okay.
So how are you studying? Are you looking up like records in the temple, or are you trying to find them by investigating like where they could have gone? Like, what is the approach you're taking?
I think I want to hear it from the Scotland from the refugees.
Interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's talking to people.
Yeah, and putting together the information. Do you think that could still be study, Tree? Or is that concert?
I think it could still be study. I think it would get a very different kind of information.
Could it be survey? Like it's more going out to the field, like kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any notes in survey, so I could. If you're surveying, then I can assist, but I want to do a group action.
Yeah, it's gather information about opportunity to exploit. I think survey could work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm assisting you.
Okay, I'll take the assist. I think what we're doing is we're actually going there. We're actually going to the refugees, where the refugees are. And I think we're going to look for some places where they would, basically, where people are just hanging out, Maybe there are pubs or something, and just kind of gather gossip that we can use to base our theories on. Get more of an idea of what she might have been talking about.
Yeah, I'm going to look up the Bundervest details that we have to see if there's some sort of pub or something. No, which means we can just invent a location. No. I was just looking to see if we already had one.
Yeah, fair enough. What sort of role? Is this a fortune roll? Or is it a role with consequences and standards?
I don't think there is any risk here because Freya has told Aadiyat, and like she's told you in front of Aadiyat, that there is no like animosity between the two of you. She's accepted that she's in debt to you. I don't think the refugees are a risk to you, and I also don't think there's anyone else necessarily interested in like following you around while you do this, apart from the head of House Anixis, who has like some golems who are looking for you. I don't think they're going to come into Vest. So I don't think that there is a risk here.
All right. So it's a fortune roll then.
Yeah.
Just to see how much we figure out.
Yeah. Just as I say this, I realize that like a golem could notice you as you walk through some of the posh path. If you want a devil's bargain,
Sure.
I'll just make a mental note that like you've been spotted again by one of those creepy crow golems. Golems?
Didn't even get to eat it this time.
Yeah, I forgot about that. What the
Yeah.
what the hell was that?
I think you didn't get to eat it. Maybe the reason that you don't get to eat it is that like as soon as the crow spots you, it flies away. Because they've now been programmed to know that something. I don't know that they've been programmed to be like, I'm going to be eaten, but they definitely know that something goes wrong. Oh yeah.
Also, why does Miraz have to resist to digest binding oil, but Joan can digest a waxwork crow?
She has a special ability.
Oh no, she doesn't.
Isn't she? She's got monstrous.
Nope. Yeah, but that doesn't make you. That's cool. Cool is the thing that lets you eat whatever you want.
Oh yeah, no. I'll tell you why it is. If you want to say you want to develop, by the way, a taste for binding oil, you don't have to resist that. That can just happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so if you want to be addicted to binding oil, then that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
Then you shouldn't roll to resist.
I'll think about it.
Yeah.
I'll think about it. I've heard of huffing glue, not drinking glue.
Not drinking it. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you should roll, John.
All right. 1 die native, 2 bonus dice from assist and devil's bargain. And it's a 6, a 1, and a 1.
6 is the one that matters. What do you want to know? Like, ask me some questions and I'll give you some answers.
People probably know about Freya in these parts. Her connection to divine powers. Is that something that's known? And is there a specific identity of like, is there a specific forgotten god or incident that she is tied to?
You certainly hear rumors and you connect it to something that the lawyer Hardil said, which is he said right at the end, we need to leave if we want to get back to the grotto on time. I think one of the rumors that you hear reminds you of that, is that there is a place in Bundavest called the Kingfisher Grotto, which is said to be home of a forgotten god.
And it's called the Kingfisher?
And the god is called the Kingfisher.
Mm-hmm.
And people say that it is now her court. It is where she audiences, fixes problems, stresses, all of this stuff. Yeah, so she holds court in this grotto, and I know it is somewhere in Bundavest. I don't know exactly where it is. Some people there are all sorts of rumors about like how to get there and so on. I don't think that I think you have enough to go on to try and investigate where it is. You have some ideas where it could be, but you don't know exactly where it is just from this roll.
Mm-hmm.
And the Kingfisher is definitely spoken of as the god that resides in that grotto. People aren't sure whether she's like an avatar of the Kingfisher in the way that your serpent is an avatar of your god, or whether she's just been touched by it, or what is going on there. But this is the kind of thing that happens, right? Rumors just transform, and it's not clear what is going on.
I want to add another little thing here
Mm-hmm.
from the world building. People have in the past gone to Kingfisher Grotto and emerged and claimed to be the rightful king of Iruvia. And as a result of this, they were immediately put down and destroyed by the secret police. Because while there isn't actual cops, there are secret cops. There are intelligentsia and secret cops.
Yes.
One assumes that the only reason that this hasn't happened to Freya is that she is not claiming to be the queen of Iruvia.
Yes.
She's claiming to be the queen of the entire world, but mostly Scotland.
She intends...
Or something.
Yeah, I mean, you get the feeling that what she's saying is, we'll start with Scotland and we'll work our way down.
And I suppose the secret police are like, good luck with that, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to start a revolution somewhere that's 2 continents away, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So long as you don't get the mob circling around you and you try to overthrow the noble houses here.
Yeah, exactly. What do I care? Yeah.
But also, probably, if they can be convinced that that's the thing, maybe Freya will cease to be a problem. Maybe. We'll see.
I mean, yeah, so exactly. There are many possibilities here. And it's almost certainly the case, by the way, that like when you ask these questions, secret police are observing who ask these questions, but they're not observing you specifically. They're just like kind of generally paying attention, and they're taking note, and like whether or not anything comes of that depends on so many various factors. So we won't have to worry about that right now. So yeah, so that's where she is, and that's the god. What else do you want to know?
Is there anything in these rumors that gives us the impression that there might be ghosts involved? Just to check Vickers' query.
Oh, interesting. I think the interesting answer here is yes. So
excellent.
I think you hear some people say that in this grotto, they say that she summons the spirits of the dead, and she holds court not just with living people, but also with dead people. Now, your first instinct is to kind of dismiss that, because not only is it the case that, like, in Uduasha, ghosts fall into the well of Udu, but also because of this, like, summoning a ghost is not something that really happens in Uduasha, right? Like, when you try and mess with the ghost field in that way, very different things happen instead. I think, like, what is the detail that you hear, Joan, that makes you think that, like, this is more than just, like, idle rumor? Like, what kind of small bit of texture clues you into, like, the fact that maybe she is actually talking to ghosts?
Interesting. I think it's possible. Is it possible that we meet someone who says that they have seen it?
Yeah, I think you meet someone who describes being, like, led into the grotto because, like, he wanted an audience with Freya, and he managed to get one. Like, he was blindfolded and taken in, so he doesn't know exactly where it is. And then he describes Freya conducting some kind of ritual. I don't think it was just as simple as, like, you were tuned to the ghost field to do something. It was a very long and careful process. Chanting, incense sticks, all this stuff. And I think he says that Freya summoned... I mean, he's going to say this, and whether or not you believe it is a different matter, but he says Freya summoned the first king of Scotland, and we should give him a name. What is a good name? Who's the first king of the Netherlands? Let's just be...
I have a different suggestion.
Uh-huh.
My shaman cohort is named Pier. And he is named Pier because of its mystic significance. And maybe this is also the name of the king, by, like,
excellent.
Coincidence or not.
Yes, absolutely. I love this.
Yes.
Yeah, so, like, he says, I saw the spirit of Pier the Wise, as he is known. Pier, they conversed, and Freya asked him questions that like, only Pier the Wise could have answered, and he answered them. And I have no doubt that, this ghost was the ghost somehow brought to this place, and then he left in peace, which is not what ghosts do. They often instead just become, like, terrible ravening monsters that eat people and so on. And I think he's now a true believer. And while this story may be unique, the zeal in his voice is all too common. It's the zeal that you hear from a lot of the people you speak to.
He very rudely reaches out and grabs the hair, or like holds a lock of hair, kind of like lifts it from the side of his face.
Ow!
And, well, she doesn't put it. She just, like, kind of lifts his hair closer,
Uh-huh.
and sees the one or two strands of gray hair in the otherwise brown.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you.
Yeah, well, you should. That happened to me. And I think that actually he also describes a very familiar feeling to you, which is the feeling of, like, just being in total and utter shock, right? Like, the feeling of, like, seeing a ghost and being frozen in place. In this case, that may also just be a result of the spectacle. Right? It may also just be being transfixed by a particularly compelling performance. There is something about the way that he says it, and he describes the chill in his bones that doesn't quite make it seem like it's fake.
Yeah, and she can see the physical effects, because, like, seeing lots of ghosts is why her hair is quick.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
I have a way I want to gather information too, if we are done with this thing.
Yeah.
I have an interesting angle how we could approach this, and maybe it is, how we could approach this score.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that hearing about this grotto and that these people live in a cave, that's basically as much as we know, right?
Yes.
This is not Vickers's domain, but she does move around the rooftops of the city a lot, and she is getting to know its layout pretty well. And so I think what she is going to do is in the approximate area where this grotto is located, and no one knows, of course, remotely exactly where, she is going to go around and look for haunted caves and tunnels.
Wow.
Or like caves and tunnels that have something weird and freaky about them. Not that she's going to go plunge into them herself, because that would be, dangerous, and she wouldn't do that alone. She's not that foolhardy. But you can definitely scout around and survey for, oh, no one goes in that tunnel, it's haunted, or no one goes in that one, weird stuff happens there.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And just kind of try to use this to triangulate, like, which one of these might connect to this haunted grotto.
Yeah. Are you going to take Pierre with you?
Yeah, I think so. Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's exactly the kind of person who you should take with you.
Yeah, in fact, let me do this gather information with the rooftop angels.
Yes.
I'm probably just leading them, but they go around. I mean, they know the city. They've lived here their whole life. So
Absolutely.
maybe it's Pierre who gives me some insight, and maybe, Socks can give me some insight too.
Yeah.
I'm like, never hide in that cave. Everyone knows it's haunted.
Yeah, everyone, I knew a kid who got eaten, just last week.
Yeah.
And maybe
Exactly.
that did happen,
So the angels get a 4
Yes.
on their gathering information.
Yeah, and I think what is weird about Uduasha is that because it is so vertical, you have several layers of rooftops and several layers of caverns and so on, right? And Bundavest is, if I remember correctly, it is kind of at ground level because it is where the old port used to be. It's not very subterranean, but it is nevertheless fairly vertical. So I think that
Still where the port is. It's just been superseded in importance by the railway.
which was that's true. Yeah, and it's about to be superseded in importance also by the airship, if you believe some people.
Yep.
So I think that what you find is an entrance to what you think must have been the grotto before it was sealed up, and you figure out that okay, really what's happening is that Freya has been very carefully making sure nobody can get to her, and then you see that I think you catch one of the people that Joan was interrogating earlier hire a boat to get onto the river, and you figure out that probably the way that people get into the grotto now is that they sail there. They don't use any of the underground passages anymore, and it's just become much easier to monitor that one that one marine pathway.
Absolutely. But I don't think that we should enter that way because we don't want to be rude to these people necessarily and just barge in and mess their shit up. I think my proposal for an entry point for this score is that we go in via a back door and that Vickers has maybe some candidate for an old back door.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like a cool thing to do, explore the dark caves and tunnels
Yes,
and
absolutely.
try to find our way in and figure out what is going on without barging in through their front door.
Yeah, and
Because that would be rude, see? And Vickers hates being
yeah,
rude.
sneaking in through the back door, on the other hand, definitely not rude. Definitely not impolite.
Yeah. Well,
Completely normal things to do.
Well, I mean, we're just exploring some tunnels. If they own these tunnels, they should have said so.
Yeah.
Yeah, put a sign.
Yeah.
What would we be doing?
Goofball practice.
Yeah. On the note of what we would be doing, I want to do my own little, I suppose, gather information.
Mhm.
I'm going to go talk to the snake.
Excellent. Incredible. Fantastic. Yeah. Big time.
Mhm.
Are you in the
So-
Sanctum Sanctorum again?
We see, yeah, I go into the sanctum and I wait for His Majesty to notice that I'm there.
Yeah. This time, so the last time you did this, Snake appeared quite quickly. This time, you find yourself waiting 3, 4, 5 hours.
I think to speed it up because it's taking so long, Miraz is going to kind of take out a chessboard and is going to plonk down a move. He's going to move like a horseman forward.
Right.
And he's going to set it down with a loud, resounding
Nice.
click.
Okay. Well, I mean, how can the snake resist a challenge such as this? Now it will only take 2 hours, right? Definitely, like the snake will appear and immediately push a pawn forward and say, "Ah, have you taken up your father's mantle in this as well?"
Mira's kind of smiles and says, "I play, but I thought we could speak as we play." As he makes his next move, kind of puts the pawn forward as well. And he says, "You must have sensed a few days ago that we were visited by a person who claims to be the Queen of Scotland."
Yes. One of the Kingfisher. I felt her. He is not a friend, but neither is he an enemy. And in that way, I permitted his vessel some leeway. I understand that she had been invited here.
We had invited the person called Freya to your home to deal with. From my understanding now, it makes a lot more sense, but we had the problem of having two Scotlander royals and not knowing what to do with them, and then we heard that there was some other Scotlander royalty in the city, which of course could not have been true, but we wanted to see for ourselves and maybe get them in touch, and so on. And then this person showed up, all strange and magnetic and massively underfed. I don't think it's religious mania. It's like nothing I've seen. I mean, people come to our temple, of course, to supplicate, but it's not like this. It's not like someone who seems to be entirely animated by the god's purpose, like some sort of underfed sock puppet. It's quite frightening. But that's not really the issue here, I suppose. There are strange and terrifying things all over Uduasha, especially as we get lower into the pit. No, what I don't like is that I felt compelled by her. What I don't like is that now we have given someone into her custody, and we have someone who is still here, who gives her a reason to come back, this Freya. And I especially don't like the things I was hearing about some sort of revolution to take back Scotland and so on. It feels to me that this is just the start of something that, of course, will not end in revolution in Scotland and the overthrow of the empire and so on, but something that will a snowball that will keep on rolling and get bigger and bigger, taking up more and more things in its orbit, in its vast, blubbery, cold embrace, before smashing apart. And I don't want it to do that.
Oh.
Am I right? Or am I wrong?
The snake will play a move that like maybe you didn't see coming, and like it puts you in a very tricky position. And as you realize that like, oh shit, I'm in a bad spot, it will say Kingfisher prefers its pawns allium so that it can provoke them to rule the world. I dislike such methods, but to each their own. Far more important to me is this suggestion that we have given up someone in our care to it. Your own wife said, did she not, that hospitality is one of the key tenets of our faith, and it is. It is why your Scotlander royals came to visit us in the first place, even though it was under false pretenses. If you do not wish to support the revolution that the Kingfisher's pawn wants of you, then I will support you. But you must claim back that guest. To do any less would be to break faith with one to whom we have offered safety and support.
Miras kind of gives a big sigh and says, and we just got rid of them. It seems that we never can. But you're right. It's not just giving someone over to their family or pushing your prop or or throwing a hot potato into someone else's hand. It's putting something into someone's hand, and then suddenly in their hand it turns out to be a big sword or something like that. If they are Bartholomew and Maud, they are true royals. And this pretender, this god sock puppeted pretender, could do horrible things with them in their hands. Yes, but I want more than just your assistance and your blessings. I am glad that you have confirmed my suspicions. That is partly why I came here. But what I want more is your help in making sure that servants, the acolytes, the puppets, whatever sorts of other occult entities that wish to come in here, they cannot, not without our leave. I wish your help in warding the temple.
Yeah, I think this is where you should roll. It seems like a long-term project more than like an acquire information.
Yes. Yeah, it is in fact a long-term project.
Probably like a 6 clock, right? Because it's like one upgrade. Oof. Rolled a study and you rolled
I think
very badly.
The reason I roll study is that Miraz tries to beat him in
Yes,
chess.
and the reason that you roll badly is that this is practically impossible. A 2, a 1, and a 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what you do is you play a move that's like, yes, and then this move will occur, and then, I will take his queen. And then you play the move, and then it turns out that, like, you missed something at once the snake replies is very obvious, and your position is completely lost. And I think the snake says, it is this overconfidence that is your undoing, Miraz. Come back to me when you have a plan, and we shall discuss it. And Miraz, I am proud of your revolution as well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Miraz says,
exactly. That is exactly what that is the intended emotion. So it's great. Very good.
Fair enough. So that was my last free downtime action. This clock. So what I want out of it, I suppose mechanically, it can already be represented by. It's the second level of secure, I guess.
We don't have the first level, so like it can still be the first level, but we will think of the first level as being the arcane level, right? Like it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. It's the other way around. And then we can actually install locks.
Yes, indeed.
Arcane wards secure. So how big would that be? 6 o'clock? Okay.
And you have 1 tick.
All right. And I think if the spotlight, I think next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to spend like a coin or something to. Here's the thing: I have 1 stress left until.
You should, yeah. You should de-stress.
Yeah. Is it okay if I spend rep?
Go ahead and spend a rep.
Also.
Yes.
Yeah, there should be 1 rep left.
Oh, but there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, I just spent that.
Okay.
It's like.
Oh, so so we don't have 1 rep left because I just took that away.
Okay.
To spend on my action. And what I'm going to do is, I guess, I'm going to talk to Fozia and talk to her about, we're trying to put some words together. There seems to be some problems, some encroachment and so on. Maybe we can talk about like maybe adding some sort of security systems, like more mundane ones to the temple. Because I suppose, the arcane stuff, it's kind of out of your wheelhouse. And by the way, I met brother the other day, Mr. What was his name? Hardil, Hardy, yeah, something like that. And he seems to be a top lawyer. He was talking about you. So that kind of thing, and shooting the shit.
I think, of course, the reason this costs a rep is that you don't know Hardil Subramanian, one of the greatest lawyers in Uduasha. Come now, Miraz. I keep telling you that you have to pay more attention. And she probably fills you in.
Also, I'm talking about her problems to her. I mean, I do that anyway, but yeah.
And I think this may be the first inkling you get, because I don't think Fozia is unaware of his connections, but she knows enough that like she shouldn't just be like, yeah, and he works for. I think she will be like, he means serious business, getting him in the foundation was a real coup. But yeah, definitely signals that you should be.
Yes. So what are his interests? I mean, you can't be a brother without. You can't just be a brother because you're good at your job. If your job has nothing to do with what you know, building and maintaining great works and infrastructure and so on. I mean, we don't have the best doctor in the city in the Brotherhood, nor do we intend to. Why do we have such a good lawyer? What's he into? What's his other side gig?
Well, I suppose.
I don't necessarily know if I'm like gathering information here, but it seems like a natural.
Yeah, it is,
question
and
to
I think
ask in
like
this context,
she's
right?
gonna tell you. I don't think there's. I think she will tell you, and I think she will say, well, you see, he is something of a. He's convinced that there must be a way to rearrange the Undercity, make it more efficient space-wise. And I have been speaking to him for some time about how to connect it more efficiently to Bundavest, so that the port can lead directly into the Undercity. And let me just say that he seems to have some very powerful backers who are interested in it. Perhaps one day we truly will see a city beneath Uduwasha flourish.
That's really interesting because just the other day, the Chandlers came up to me and started telling me about how our snake ate one of their golems, whose entire job apparently was to kind of like clear out the Undercity. And I think they're going about it entirely the wrong way. Golems. I mean, I can speak plainly to you, of course. You see eye to eye with me on this. It's a complete. It's a bust. It's a non-starter. But I think if Brother Hardil is like so interested in this Undercity project, and the Chandlers, they want to also, we could maybe get something going. Yes, this is interesting, isn't it?
Yes, you should bring this up with him.
Imagine being able to involve the Chandlers in this project, like properly, like actually bring them into the 9th century for a change.
Yes.
Maybe we can reform them. Maybe we can start making hulls or whatever. There's so much artisanal craftsmanship and so on. It pains me to see it wasted on their frivolous ghosts.
Yes, I think you speak sense, guys. How about I will arrange our next meeting. In fact, I've been telling him for some time that he should come back, but I will arrange our next meeting in a place that I will make sure that they can access, and we will discuss this. I will put it on our agenda. As if the Foundation has an agenda, by the way, they don't. The agenda is whatever Fauzia is thinking of at that moment. But I think she kind of makes a note to like follow through on this. Whether she will or not depends on what mood she is on that day. I think she says that he is oddly obsessed with the particulars of space and like the way that things are packed, and I don't know. Even for me, it's a bit much. And this is because Hardil is like very interested in smuggling and wants to be very efficient while smuggling things. But I don't think Fawzia necessarily knows or cares about that.
All right.
So I think where we are is we do still have 2 downtime actions for our boss that we need to do, if I remember correctly.
Joan also. Joan
And
hasn't done
Joan,
it, right?
yes. Okay, so let's do Jones then.
So shall we think about just doing Jones and kind of adjourning for next session?
Yeah. So Joan has been thinking about that Chandler woman that keeps coming into the temple and hanging out with Mira.
Yes.
And she would like to ambush her at some point. Not in a violent way, just like in a, hey, I'm leaning against the pillar while you're eating. Right.
Great. Yeah, that's not difficult to do at all. Because as you say, she is coming and going all the time. I think is now actually with there being some like conversation about like the airship and like the work that they can do together. Shama is less grumpy and less antagonistic. So when you meet her, she is like, she's kind of in a good mood. And she's, I think, like looking forward to like going home and like taking a break or whatever it is. So like you see her kind of humming to herself as she's leaving.
You're the Chandler, aren't you? So yeah, she's just like leaning against the pillar in the main kind of entry hall atrium place as she's leaving, and Joan will call out to her. You're the Chandler, aren't you?
Oh yeah. No, yes, I am. I'm not the Chandler. I'm a Chandler. One of the ancient order. Nice to meet you. My name is Shama.
Joan. I'm always very fascinated by your work, by waxwork golems. They're quite savory, sophisticated. I mean,
by the way, you notice that like she has a waxwork prosthetic hand. It looks very lifelike, but I think you get close to it at this kind of distance, and I'm sure Miraz has noticed this before, of course. But you find yourself wondering what it might taste like. And she says, yes, they are marvelous inventions, always new things to be found with them. As you can see, and then like she kind of waggles her fingers, says, I'm grateful to my master for making this for me. She, incredible feat. Then I think she will lean...
Oh, that is exquisite.
And she will lean in and say, between you and me, the man inside Miraz, he's made an arm, and it's really interesting, but no comparison to this.
She smiles a little. Are there ghosts in there too?
I'm gonna say, I don't think she's noticed that like you are also part of the... Well, I think she thinks you're just like you're hanging out because you're just leaning against the pillar. So she says, "No, this is. Well, it's a rather clever design, actually. It feeds off of my own life force as I walk. So it is powered by my ghost. Haha.
Fascinating. But usually there are lots of ghosts in golems, right?
But that is that's a misconception. It is less that there are lots of ghosts in them and more that..." And then she goes into like a technical explanation that you can interrupt at any time. Will boil down to kind of ghost powered.
So if you're a big snake and you eat wax or eat a golem, what happens to the spirit or spirit residue? Like, can animals, or I guess avatars, digest that?
I think this is why you should roll, because we will now find out how much she does know about this question.
Is this a long-term project or something?
I think what I'm doing is I'm working on that clock of Joan changes her mind about golems.
Okay.
And I have zero dice in consort, but it's the only one that fits really.
I think that in this case, you can get a die from her, but you won't get it for free. Mm-hmm. I think that what is she? Oh yeah, no. In fact, I already know what it is, because I think she's gonna notice that you have eaten a crow, right? And we mentioned when you were trying to capture it that if she found out that you had destroyed a crow golem like that, she would be very upset. And I think it's possible from the way that you talk that you have actually maybe destroyed an artifact of that kind, the same way as your god did. Enough. Yeah, I think that's kind of like a devil's bargain.
Yeah.
It's not even a devil's bargain. I think that has already kind of happened. But you can get a die for that because that's going to materialize now.
Cool. Is there position effect here?
No, I think it's a fortune roll. I think the bad thing has already happened, so it's just.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's see what this die does then. Mm-hmm. It does it too.
I think she says, "This a prank?" 8. Then she looks back at the temple and looks back at you and says, "One of them too, aren't you? Oh, you're just making fun of me. Think that just because we don't have the ability to push your god, that you can just turn up and pretend that oh, I'm asking innocent questions about eating snakes and demons and whatever it is. Oh, I'm not having it."
It was an honest question. She tries.
And she's like, how am I supposed to know what a god thinks when it eats things? Shouldn't you ask your priest friend that? No, of course you don't. You think that everything is just a big joke, don't you? I bet you don't even like golems. Bet you think that golems are weird and everything should be hulls instead, don't you?
As she should.
I think that we need to know. I think that something happened when this golem was eaten. Maybe that it might have consequences. And I think that it's good for both our temple and for you if we know what those consequences are before they manifest.
Oh, let me tell you one thing. If you really wanted to know that, you could have just told me that's what you wanted to know, instead of, pretending to be someone you're not, and then asking me some weird questions about whether I like golems or not, and then whether we're powered by ghosts or not. Just be a normal person. The fact that she's currently not actually being very normal is of no consequence to her whatsoever. I think she says, the next time you want to, and I know you must have already experimented on a golem. I'm sure that you've already destroyed some priceless artifact yourself. Well, the next time you want to do such a thing, just remember, it was someone's years of skill and countless weeks of hard work that went into making one of those, and then you must have just, I don't know, stamped on it with your shitty little foot. I bet that's what you did.
Have a nice night. And she turns around and walks away.
I don't think I think Shama's going to say anything. She was a storm off. A lovely mood having been ruined now.
Oops.
For that. I mean, it was a 2.
Mm-hmm. It really was.
Hey, you want to talk about the time that I ate a priceless artifact that also contains a bunch of dead people inside? What happened to the dead people? Am I gonna get sick? Am I gonna get ghost diabetes?
Yeah, like I ate a bunch of ghosts. Is this bad?
I think what you were very lucky about was that she thought you were talking about the fact that your god did that, not that you did that. It's like,
well, we don't have WebMD yet. It hasn't been invented yet, so we have to take
that
it.
is true. That's true.
Talk to
You
people.
could look up some snakeskin. Maybe that could help.
Yeah. No, what I'm going to do instead is, for a completely different reason, ruin somebody else's evening. I want to get a message to Marion.
Okay.
Is that viable, actually? Like, can I send one of those kids?
Marion hates you, but like the faction as a whole actually quite likes you. So getting a message to her is no problem.
So a kid goes to her and will give her something. And in like Scotland culture, in the past, if you had like a feud between families and you want to like kind of sue for peace, you might give them one of the 3 parts of a disassembled sword, or I guess 4: blade, crossguard, handle, or pommel. Because if a sword is disassembled, it can't be used. But these are modern times, so instead the kid is just going to give her a bullet.
Really normal thing for any person to do. Yeah.
And a note, or maybe the kid actually says the message that I like passed along, being something to the extent of, it's true that I don't believe in your cause, and you may call that betrayal or cowardice, and you might even be right, but it's not just me that you don't speak for. It's a lot of people in Scotland. And I wish you luck, but I don't think that's going to matter until that changes.
I think it's very good about sending this via a proxy is that Marion can't like respond to you in the way that she would like without yelling at a small child. So she will like, take the bullet, glare at it, and then like look at the child and say, I want you to go back, woman who gave me this message. I want you to say this very clearly. You ready? Here it is. Fuck you. That's the message.
The message is fuck you.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Because as you say, you went out to ruin someone's night, and you absolutely did.
All right. Yeah, that's my downtime.
Excellent. What was the second action?
Ruining Nights.
Ruining Nights. Now your vice.
No, I think this would be another long-term project called An Understanding with Marion.
In that case, why don't you roll first? Because I think a fuck you is what you would get the 1 to 3. You might get a better response. I hadn't.
Okay. Sway.
Makes sense? Yeah. It's a 3. So in
That's
fact,
me. So it's
that's exactly what happens.
the canon is true. How big should this clock
Oh
be?
man. I think it should be 8 steps. Cause he really fucking hates you. In the way that someone who used to love you hates you.
Excellent.
It's a lot of
Wonderful.
work. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Because I was actually thinking about this. I was thinking, okay, how would it look like if you rolled a 6, right? And it would have been, I think she would have done that and then 2 minutes later changed her mind. Actually, in this version, we see the child go away. Marion doesn't rethink that. Like, that's absolutely what Joan deserved. Oh, I don't need this like pity. I don't need this whatever this is. Like.
Take your bullet and shove it to me. Yeah. All right, that's me done.
Okay, 3. Sign us out for the listener.
Does that mean?
I was just gonna say sign us out for the listener, but I think the vibe has gone. We'll just cut where Joan said that she's done.
That's me done. Episode ends.
And so blows out our brief candle. I named the disciples of the Ceaseless Temple thus, with both their given names and taken. Soumithri, called Tree. Zoheb, called Klow. Prince, Emma, and Aadiyat, called Soap. Intro music, Jalandhar by Kevin MacLeod. Outro music in Keeravani Ragam by U. Srinivas. Blades in the Dark by John Harper and Evil Hat Productions. Iruvian playbooks by Johnstone Metzger. Follow us at Desperate Attune on Twitter or email us at desperateattune@gmail.com. Support us at ko-fi.com/desperateattune.
On the next episode, Desperate Attune.
Cave diving. Well, I haven't done cave diving in a while. Not since the.
Back a gun.
This reminds me of the time where the billions in the mines. I was very young back then. I didn't really understand what was going on, but there was some action going on, and it really takes me back because I remember that even then someone just handed me a rope and some harness and told me to pack a gun, and we went down into the mines, and it was a really good time there. Let's go.
I think you say let's go and then you turn around and find that Miras is already gone.